It may be stated thus, as a political axiom in America, that the Constitution is supreme and paramount to all acts of all departments of government, and that any such act repugnant to or inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void. In other words, it's a philosophy, it's a political maxim, it's a 1 + 1 = 2 type thing, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and all of the acts of all the departments of government are bound to perform in accordance with the Constitution, and any act inconsistent with any law, any action of the executive that is inconsistent with even a Supreme Court ruling is a null and void act. In other words, that's what the word repugnant means. It means it's wrong. So the Constitution itself is the act of constituting, enacting, and establishing or appointing. We live in a society where we think in terms of the Constitution giving us rights, the source of our rights, when in fact it's the instrument that creates a government. It gives the government rights. The state of being, that form of being or peculiar structure and connection of parts which makes or characterizes a system or body. The purpose of the Constitution is to constitute. It creates. So it is the established form of government in a state, kingdom, or country, a system of fundamental rules, principles, and ordinances for the government of state or nation. So going back to the beginning of what we were talking about was Constitution lays the foundation for the legitimate so that we can distinguish the counterfeit. If we see that the government is doing outside the boundaries of the Constitution, that would be counterfeit. And no more than we would accept a counterfeit bill for something of ours of value, why should we accept this government doing something outside the realm of the Constitution that created it? John Randolph Tucker said, when government exercises power which the Constitution allows, its action has the full force of the sovereign will. But when the government does what the Constitution does not allow, the action of the government is ultra vires and void, meaning that it's illegal, it's unlawful, it is outside the scope of power. This is the great American discovery in political science. So the Declaration of Independence, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, again emphasizing to secure these rights, the ones that were enumerated, the unalienable rights endowed upon all men by our Creator. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and in this context, that would be the Constitution itself. So, going back to the principles of the Declaration of Independence, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends. Now, this is a very interesting twist. We're moving, again, notice this is a self-evident truth that the Declaration of Independence promulgates, that whenever, and notice that it doesn't say if ever, it says whenever government becomes destructive of these ends. Okay, what ends are we talking about? Securing the unalienable rights endowed upon all men by their Creator. Deriving just powers by consent of the governed. These are the ends that if government becomes destructive. Whenever, not if ever, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends. Now there's a principle that we've all heard, that power corrupts and ultimate power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The Founding Fathers knew and understood that governments do become corrupted over a period of time. So they didn't say if ever, they said whenever. So it was inevitable that they understood that the people being sovereign had ultimate responsibility and control over their government. So much so, they concluded that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, of course the ends being to secure those rights endowed upon us by the Creator, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Now, of course, it is natural that the sovereign would have the power to abolish the authority given to the agent whenever the agent becomes destructive to the end it was established. Of course, alter, you could say to alter a government means to go out and vote for a new law, a new legislation, or maybe you want to vote somebody out of office. But to abolish is an entirely different concept. Abolish means to make void, to annul, to abrogate, applied chiefly and appropriately to establish laws, contracts, rights, customs, and institutions. It means basically to put an end to. This is consistent with the principle that the people are sovereign, because whatever the Creator creates, the Creator has the power to destroy. The Creator has the power to control. This is real consistent. And I'm saying this just to demonstrate that the Founding Fathers did not err. It was no accident that they wrote this Constitution in such a way as to make the people sovereign. So, Colorado Constitution, again, this is Article 2, Section 2. And you'll find this also in every state constitution around the country. The people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state, and to alter and abolish their constitution and form of government whenever they deem it necessary to their safety and happiness. Now, again, Article 1 is the boundaries of Colorado. Article 2 is the one, Article 2, Section 1 says that all power of right derives from the people. Article 2, Section 2 basically, again, reinforces the principle once again that the people are in fact sovereign. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. There's a principle in the Declaration of Independence incorporated right into Colorado Constitution. Well, now, nature abhors a vacuum. It would not be a wise thing to do to tear something down or abolish something without instituting something in its place. So inherent in the duty to abolish is also the duty to institute new government. Now, how can we institute new government if we're not talking about the forms of government or the theory of government or the philosophy of government? So, to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. This is a conversation the Declaration of Independence encourages, that we do talk about the forms of government and the powers of government and the principles of government and the philosophy of government. Why? So that when the government does become destructive to the ends that it was established to secure, that we are prepared by being able to have the conversation about instituting new government. Of course, institute means to create something all over again. And if the people are sovereign, then they certainly have that ability. Principles. The cause, source, or origin of a thing, that from which a thing proceeds, element, constituent, part, substance, a general truth, a law comprehending many subordinate truths, ground, foundation, that which supports an assertion, an action, series of actions, or of reasoning. I'm mentioning the word principle with an L-E to distinguish it from an A-L, principal, as to demonstrate the founder's understanding that principles are philosophy. And so if we're going to establish a new government, then we better understand certain principles about government, certain philosophies about government, so that when we do organize it, that we can organize it in such form as to us shall seem most likely to affect our safety and happiness. Okay, the form, of course, there's form and then there's substance. There's form, which is the shape, but then the substance is of course, the philosophy. The form being the judicial, legislative, executive, etc. The substance being the philosophy that the form then implements. The Declaration, again, notice that this is still one of the self-evident truths that the Declaration does espouse. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when? Not if, but when. When a long train of abuses and usurpations. Now let's stop there and ask the question, what's a usurpation? A usurpation is the act of seizing or occupying, enjoying that which belongs to another without right, as the usurpation of a throne, the usurpation of supreme power. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Let's stop there for a minute. Despotism would be the absolute power, what I was talking about earlier. Total government, total power, statism.